Hello, everyone. This is FIDE Master Victor Neustroev, and welcome to this 50-second webinar. Today's webinar is devoted to prophylactic thinking. I hope many of you know what prophylactic thinking means, but if not, we are going to discuss it today. Moreover, I'm going to show you 3 games examples so that you will learn how to implement prophylactic ideas, prophylactic thinking ideas in your game and how successful it works when, especially when you don't know what plan to apply in a certain position. Okay, I hope you can see me, the diagram, and of course, I'm sure you can hear me well. I'm absolutely sure because today I plugged my new microphone. So the new microphone that I bought, it's a Rode NT-USB. So, and it has a studio quality. So it should be really super fine. Please confirm if the sound is really perfect. Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you. So I bought this microphone, so it's quite expensive. It's about $200, but I spent them to be able to create more video courses for you so that the quality of the sound will be really good. I also bought another HD webcam. It's full HD webcam, so now the quality of my face, my picture is slightly better. The previous one was HD. Now we have full HD. However, fine. Okay, so today we are going to talk about prophylactic thinking. Please let me know if you know what it means, and no, you can explain what it means, and like maybe you can suggest an example of prophylactic thinking. And while you are trying to type the answer, I'll show you some pages that are important. This is my profile on chess.com. I recommend you to add me as a friend, not to miss any announcements, any simuls, and so on. This is our educational group, Tricks of Chess. And here, for example, I publish my streams. Like this webinar is streamed and the video is recorded. So you can, for example, if you for some reason can't access this webinar room, you can click on live webinar 52 and go there and watch this webinar online from YouTube. Also, I'm going to publish the pairings. So guys, please remember that your task was to play the game until today. Today is the last day to play the game. This is our Honest Chess League. So the first round. So this is the first round is going to be finished today. Tomorrow, on Monday, I'm going to publish new pairings. Please don't forget to send me the links to the game you played. If you experience some problems in schedule the game with your opponent, also let me know. You can email me. So this is my email, tricksofchess@gmail.com. Okay, so this is the link to my YouTube channel where you can find the list of my previous webinars. For example, if you decide to watch the recording. And of course, the link to my website, so where I publish some of my courses there, my online courses, but actually together with the courses you might be interested in my chess blog. So for example, here this is the pairings of the first round. If you played in our tournament, you might be interested in it. What else? So here I made a post about chess tournaments that are conducted now in Budapest. So my friend Laszlo, he is international organizer. Yes, and he conducts such a tournament. If you don't know where to participate, where to play, you can go to Budapest. And actually, Vitaly, thank you for your pictures. I also wrote another article about OTB tournaments after the pandemic. So, and I included the pictures from Dolomites, Italy. Fine. So I'm going to close it anyway because we don't need it. Okay, maybe even this. Okay, actually, I'm going to close everything. Fine. So let's talk about prophylaxis. So, okay, let me read what you said. Sackett said, playing a move, stopping or countering opponent's move in advance. Okay, I almost agree with you. So, Anusha thinks that prophylactic thinking is where you play moves that prevent your opponent's ideas. Yes. And Sheldon. So, okay, so yeah, I agree with you. Petrosyan was the master of prophylaxis, but actually, I think I would say Anatoly Karpov was the best in prophylaxis. Yes, and I think the Vitaly is much closer to the definition. So prophylactic thinking or prophylaxis are the moves that will be helpful in the position later in the game. And of course, here we should always think about our opponent's plan and try to discover it. So, for example, every time your opponent makes a move, you should ask yourself, why did he play this move? What he wants? What is he threatening with anything after this move? So your task is to recognize the idea behind the move. And if you believe this idea is quite dangerous for your position, try to prevent it, or try to find a counterplay that makes the enemy plan not so good, or maybe even useless. Uh-huh. So I have no ideas why Petrosyan was called the most defending player. Yeah, maybe I think he is not. He's not the most defending. Well, maybe well known as a good defensive player. That could be true. Okay, fine. So let me repeat. So sometimes prophylaxis is made to prevent your opponent's plan, but sometimes it's just a move that can be a helpful move in future. Maybe it will be helpful for your plan, or it can help to prevent the enemy plan in future. So yeah, usually it happens when you castle to the queen side and then you decide to play king b1, which is not actually what we need in this concrete moment, but we just have no ideas what to play, what gonna happen, but we are absolutely sure that the king standing on b1 is safer than the king on c1. And it will be more difficult for your opponent to initiate the attack on the queen side if the king is on b1. So this is also a prophylaxis. If speaking about this game, this is actually the game between Mikhail Botvinnik and Vasily Smyslov. It's white to move. I want you to recognize the idea of black in this position. So what black wants to do, what black wants to control, and suggest the plan for white. What do you think? Okay, I see h4 is suggested. Oh, please explain the idea of h4. Well, bishop e2 makes more sense. I would prefer to keep the bishop alive in this position. However, after bishop e2, I think we may lose something. Oh, actually not. Not. We are fine, I think. So the c5 pawn is pinned. That's why black is unable to capture on d4. So bishop e2 could make sense. I would agree with you. However, I'm not so sure that this is the best option. Yes, so trying to hit the knight and threatening the pawn storm. Okay, so here again, Vitaly is very close. Black wants to open the white squared bishop and control the diagonal. Okay, black wants to open this bishop, control the diagonal, and we need to find a safe place for the king. Okay, no, I was mistaken. You are not closer. Okay, actually, yes, he wants to open the control, open the bishop. But what is more important, he doesn't really want to attack the king, but he wants to control the center of these light squares. That's the goal of black in this position. Also, he wants to put the pressure on d4, so something like a6, knight c3, and then maybe c takes d4. But of course, we should always look at these diagonals. So probably rook has to play to e8 first. So what do you think white... Oh, actually, okay, you said d5 block. Okay. d5 creates a passed pawn. Okay, so let's say d5, knight takes f3, queen takes f3, knight a5. The pawn on c4 is hanging. The d5 pawn is hanging. It looks like d5 loses a pawn. Fine, so d5 is not a good move. Okay, so what did happen in the game? Botvinnik decided to take on c6. Bishop c6. He traded the bishop for a knight, and then he plays f3 with the goal to control these light squares. So f3 automatically makes the bishop a bad piece. Okay, isn't d takes c5 f3 pawn? No, now g2 is hanging and knight f3 is coming. Or what? You wanted to say that d takes c5 here, then knight f3, queen f3, then probably knight a5. So the c4 pawn is hanging. So I'm not sure if how to play, because queen e2 maybe. Maybe queen g4 to protect here. But if queen g4, then first f5 and actually knight b3, knight c5 could make sense. So no, it's not a free pawn. Let's go back. So bishop c6, bishop takes c6, f3 was played to control the squares on the main diagonal. a6, knight c3. What else I want you to remember? So by playing f3, we not only restrict this bishop, but also this knight. That's why in this position he should play a move to create an escape square, because we are threatening with h4. That's why he plays f5. Castle. Well, now the knight can escape to f7, so it doesn't make sense to play h4. Queen f6. Well, queen d3. Then rook d8. And how would you play in this position? Centralize the rooks. So rook a d1. Yeah, rook a1 could make sense. Okay, guys, you suggested good moves, but yeah, I see. But the best option is d5. Why d5? Because our task is to locate the pawns on light squares. This is how we can stop, we can restrict the bishop, and at the same time use this bishop to attack the enemy pieces through the dark squares. So knight f7 and e4. For example, he could, instead of playing knight f7, he could take. If so, we can capture with the pawn, we can capture with the knight, so maybe knight is better, and if he takes, we take with the pawn. Maybe just to take with the pawn right now is the best option. So what then? Knight f7, rook fd1, and then e4. So everything is fine. Almost same thing happened in the game. Knight f7 was played, e4, he takes d5, c takes d5. Bishop moves to d7. Actually, the bishop wasn't hanging, but he decided to relocate it. Bishop b2 to take the advantage of the dark squares that are open. Knight e5. Queen goes to e2. What do you think black should do on the next move? Okay, yeah, Mithran, I agree with you. We are placing our pawns on light squares to deactivate the black light squared bishop. Okay, you think that c4 and knight d3 should be played? Okay, this is a good plan. Yeah, but another good plan is to play f4. So f4 is just slightly better than c4. Why f4? Because black needs to blockade white pawns, and this is how he decided to do it. So he prevents us from playing f4 and e5, because with two pawns in the center we can definitely win the game. We'll play e6, d6, e7, and so on, and just promote the pawns. He would have to sacrifice the material in such a case. However, if not f4, then c4. This is the second option, but f4 was played. What do you think white should do? I can say that in this position, white has two good solutions to take the advantage. Can you find it? Activate the knight. Yes, activate the knight might be one of them, but how exactly to activate the knight? Knight d1, knight f2, knight g4. Knight g4, bishop g4. Knight d1, knight f2, and then d3, right? Because on g4 it bishop. We already decided that this bishop is quite bad because we located the pawns on light squares. So it's better not to trade this piece, but to try to put the pressure on e5 to open our bishop and to ruin his blockade. Okay. So what happened? Knight d1 is a good move, and this is actually what was played in the game. Another good option was to find a tactical decision. d6. Queen takes d6. Rook fd1. Queen goes to b8. And after knight d5, we have a strong attack. The f4 is likely to be lost. The b6 is a weakness. We are threatening with some knight e7 checks. For example, what can he do? If he tries to play knight g6 to protect the pawn, then what? I would say something like bishop f6 could work. Because if he takes this bishop, then knight takes on d7, and we enter the enemy camp with our pieces. So knight d6 and knight d5. So we can sacrifice the pawn and then activate our knight, and then we also join the bishop to the attack. However, Mikhail Botvinnik decided to apply a slow plan, knight d1, b5, knight f2, c4 to control the d3 square. A takes b5, a takes b5, and a queen d2. So to put the pressure on f4, to keep the queen tied down to this pawn, and also to prevent b4 activity. Rook ac8 was played. Rook fc1. So we want to play queen d4 maybe on the next move, maybe queen a5, bishop c3. Bishop c3 was actually played here. Okay. So rook c7 was played and king h1. Why did we play king h1? Who knows? Yeah, bishop c3 contains the idea of playing queen b2. That's right. But what's the idea of king h1? Okay, so to prevent queen b6, rook g1, g3, no. Yes, to avoid discovered attack, but actually it's another prophylaxis. Queen g5, and then we have to think about the f3 pawn. We don't really have to hurry. That's why we may move the king to the corner, and after queen g5, we may play another move, for example, queen b2, rook a5, or something else. Rook b7, rook a2, double the rooks to enter the enemy camp with the a file, h5, rook a1, b4. Well, b4 was a pawn sacrifice, actually. It's difficult to suggest a move. What can you say? What black can do? Of course, b4 was a weak move, and with this move, black lost the game faster. What else could he do? What do you think? If you were black, how would you play? G5 and g4. Okay, let's say g5, rook a6, queen g7, and after you play g4, I'll play queen takes f4. Okay, maybe rook a7 here. Oh, yeah, I think your g5, g4 attack doesn't really make sense. So I don't know, but maybe something like king h7, kind of another prophylaxis. It's difficult to find a move, but well, then of course either rook a6 or rook a7. However, b4 was played in the game. Bishop takes b4, queen b6, bishop c3, queen e3. So his idea was to try to chase the knight and maybe somehow take the advantage of it. If, for example, queen e3, f takes e3. But knight d1 was played immediately. Now the queen has to do something. The queen takes, rook takes, knight d3, bishop d4, rook eb8, so knight c3 to prevent rook b1, rook b3, h4 to create an escape square for our king, rook b7, and after rook a8, black resigned. Why? Because white here has a clear plan to win the game. To move the king to h2 if it's needed, then to promote the e pawn. e5 is 6, then d6 is 7, and so on. So Shouldn't Botvinnik reroute the white knight? No, it's not required. With 2 pawns in the center, it's just easy to promote. And also the knight from c3 covers the b1 square to avoid any complications. I don't really think that rook b1 is quite strong in this position, but wait a sec, where to locate the knight? I think it's fine on c3. Maybe on e4 it will be better, but we have a clear plan to advance the pawn to gain a piece, and then we can do everything, including just simplifying the position. Of course, I understand that many of you would continue playing this game. As for me, I would play maybe 3-4 moves for black, and then I would resign. Of course, it depends on who you are playing with. For example, today I played against my student, and I gave him a handicap of 1 queen and 1 rook. Can you imagine that I still was able to win the game? He had really good chances, but unfortunately played so fast and missed something. No, actually, he is 7 years old. Okay, fine. So the game was over. I think everything was clear. So here I want you to remember the idea. So our task was to discover the enemy plan and then to fight against this plan. So looks like in this position we have to trade the bishop for a knight anyway, or move the bishop to a bad position, to e2. That's why not to take on c6 and then restrict enemy pieces with f3 move, keeping in mind the idea of advancing the pawns in the center. This is what can offer a good play for us. Okay, so no, let's say king f7, e5. What then? e6 is gonna be a check. So what? Bishop f5, e6. Where the king goes? King g6. If king g7, then I think bishop c. Not bishop c5. Okay, king g7. Then I can take on g7, I think, or I can play rook here and take on g7 with my rook. So that's why let's say king goes to g6. Rook a2 with the idea to play e7, or to play d6 and d7 to play d8 on the next move. So how to play? Let's trade the rooks off. Rook b2, then knight takes b2, and what? Rook e8. And then I'm ready to play these 3 moves. Nobody can stop me. So let's say knight goes back to d3, then d6, and he has to sacrifice the material. Of course, it's a winning position. Okay, so no, just go back. Let's summarize everything. So what we should do, I told you to discover the enemy plan and try to prevent it. So here, instead of allocating our bishop to a bad position, to e2, we decided to trade it for a knight and then play f3 to restrict enemy pieces activity, both knight and bishop. And then our plan was to advance the pawn, to locate them on light squares so that we restrict enemy bishop, but take the advantage of open jack squares to activate our bishop. Our task was just not to blunder any tactical strike. So here f5 should be played to escape with the knight. And then we played d5. We advanced 2 pawns together and tried to remove the piece that blocked our e5 move. So we wanted to play this move, that's why black blocked. And then we decided to improve our worst piece to get rid of this defender, of this blocking piece of the knight. It took time for us, so now we can't really deal with the knight on e5, but we can take the advantage of the a file. b4 was a weak move. Otherwise, we just enter the enemy camp and get rid of this knight and promote 2 pawns. Okay, fine. That was a kind of a summary. Please tell me if you like it, or what else do you want me to do? Okay, so the second game I'm going to cover is the game played between Konstantin Sakayev and Andrei Sokolov. Please look at this position. Tell me what you think black should do, and what about white pieces. So let's recognize the idea behind black moves. Try to, if we believe it's quite dangerous, let's try to prevent it. Just any suggestions. Tell me what you think. It's white to play. So white to play, what white should do? So white to move, you suggest bishop h4? f5, no, f5. Generally speaking, I like f5 move, but I'm not sure if it works right now. So f5, okay. h4, okay, I've got, I understood h4 to prevent bishop h4, castle king side, castle queen side. But tell me, what's black idea? Does black want to play bishop h4 and that's it? Or you can find a clearer plan for black? Can improve his position in general, not just one move. Okay, so there was a suggestion to play b4 for white. Can you please explain it? To b4 to prevent any checks from black? Wait a sec, how b4 prevents any checks? Because the bishop h4 can be played. Check. Okay, Vitaly, don't you think it's too risky to castle queenside? Maybe you'd better wait and then play f5, and only after that castle queenside. Because let's wait until your opponent plays castle kingside. Okay, so now Timur suggested a good plan. Rook c8, bishop c5, a5, b4. No, you are very close. Okay, I'll show you. So actually, black wants to play knight c5, then knight to e4, and we can't really do anything with this knight. We can't just stay and wait. We have to take it. Then he captures with the pawn. So the pawn can be a weakness, but actually is not. He's gonna play bishop d5, so the c2 will be a weakness in such a case. He wants to put the pressure there. So because I play Can-Sicilian, that's why I know in some positions knight from f6 comes to e4, it's taken, and then the d pawn takes. So it's quite a powerful pawn, and it really is annoying for us. So knight c5 is a plan. That's why we play b4, to prevent this plan. As for your bishop h4 suggestion here, I can say just king f1, because I'm not sure which side to castle. Why not to play king f1? Maybe then king g2, because with the piece standing on d4, I don't really think the opponent can exploit his light squared bishop activity. So with this move, we restrict the bishop as well as this knight, while the bishop on b7 is already restricted because it's French defense. That's why. No, actually, it's not French defense. The position is typical for French defense. For Steinitz variation, Rubinstein variation. But actually, it arises from Sicilian. I think here it's better to locate the king on f2 rather than castle, or maybe on d2. So what happened? a5 was played. Now we play c3. He takes on b4, or he could take on b4. Actually, he played queen c6. However, he could take on b4. Then c takes b4. Bishop to h4 check. What can you say about knight g3 in this position? Should I move the king or play knight g3? Okay, so your opinions were divided. So who thinks king f1 is best? Okay, and who wants to play knight g3? Okay, fine. I'll explain you both. Actually, if I were you in this position, approximately king f1 and king d2 are almost the same. I think maybe king d2 is better because after we control the c file, we have nothing to worry with the king standing on d2. But okay, king f1, that makes sense. If, for example, instead of this move we play this, then bishop g3, queen g3, and in this position, our opponent can apply a tactical strike. King e2? Okay, tell me which rook black should capture. A3, not the H1. Yes, if queen f1, then just rook a1 traps the queen. That's why they should take on a3. After that, just rook b1, and despite piece loss, we can succeed in this game. So we are much better in this position. We have two good bishops, and the b5 is a weakness. Our plan is to play f5, open the king, and try to checkmate. While our king is quite safe. We can locate it on e2 or move it to e3. Even here, white is better. But of course, king f1 gives us more winning chances, as well as king d2. Okay, so a takes b4 wasn't played, queen c6 was played instead. King d2. It's not obvious, and actually is not required to play this move. Instead, we could castle king side, for example. That was a possible move in this position. Why not? Then we are about to play f5. So for those of you who prefer to play positional, I would recommend this move. As for me, maybe I would play this move. But to castle, then move the king here, to h2, then play g5. This is what could make sense here. Okay, anyway, king d2. Black castled, and g5 to open the position. What should he do? What do you think? What now black should play? h5. Okay, if you think h5, tell me what white gonna do after h5. Oh, g6 cannot. G6. You mean white should play g6 after h5? Okay, got you. Well, okay. So actually, the best move here is h takes g5, and this is what was played in the game. As for this move, I don't really like it because I think g6 offers a really good winning chances for white in this position. For example, f takes g6, bishop takes g6, then just queen goes to the h file, and it's difficult to find the defense. Of course, he can play knight f8, but then we can join the rooks to the attack. So g5, h takes g5, f takes g5, a takes b4, c takes b4. And in this position, now let's suggest a good plan for black, because I didn't really like what happened in the game. Looks like in this position, white has a clear attack on the king side, and it's difficult to find anything that makes sense for black. So we restricted black piece's activity, and it's difficult to suggest the plan. Maybe if I were black, I would be thinking about something that connected with f6. Why? Because the goal is to somehow open the position. Okay, what about now? Okay. So the sound is okay? Oh, I can hear you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I don't know what happened. I just plug it off and then plug it in. So sorry, maybe I did something with the microphone. I don't know. I'm gonna test it anyway, and it has 2 years of warranty. And this is actually a new one. Okay, fine. So it's fine. So what can I say about this position? I would say something like f6 might work, but actually the king is too weakened. After rook g1, black is about to be checkmated in just a few moves. So that's why it's difficult to suggest something. Yeah, maybe knight b6, knight c4, but knight b6 is taken. So what? To play rook a6 first? Maybe. Maybe knight b8 just. Maybe bishop d8. Okay, let's make this move. So bishop d8. They play rook hc1. Queen has to move to a6. This is the only spot. And then a4. And the position is really bad. Bishop b5 is coming. So knight b6, for example, is faced with bishop b5. And knight c4 with rook c4. Okay, so Mithran, I'm sure you visited my previous webinar when we were talking about if the position, if there should be a tactical strike for one side. It was not the previous webinar, but there was a webinar devoted to a tactical assessment of the position. Yes, sometimes even if your position is worse, you may be looking for a tactical strike if you see that there are any tactical motives that can be applied in this position, such as king weakness in the center on d2, but actually in this position the king is quite safe on d2. And in this position, white is definitely better. That's why almost all tactical strikes should be in white favor. So it's difficult to find something. Okay. So what happened in the game? Rook a3. Rook takes a3. Bishop b4. But this tactic didn't work. Rook c3. Knight b6. So now the bishop can't take because then actually, let's check. So bishop takes. Then bishop c3, knight takes c3. And after d4, this rook is hanging. So that's why after knight b6, we are unable to take it. But we can play queen a3 with the idea to go to the queen side and checkmate. So maybe here knight c4 was a better move. But in such a case, I would recommend you to play king e1. And we can still continue our idea to checkmate the king on the king side. However, in the game, it was bishop c3, knight takes c3, knight c4 now, king e1, queen c7, king e2. Can you explain the idea of king e2 move? Rook a1? No, I don't think rook a1. So here we almost checkmated on the king side. We don't need to play rook a1 move. Okay, so the idea of this move is to make a pin. This is how we protect the e5 pawn indirectly. For example, if we play, here king e2, if knight e5 in this position, we can play just queen g3. This is how we create a pin, and in case if the king is on e1, he could unpin with knight d3 move, which cannot be played in this position with the king standing on e2. Actually, you see, here queen c7 was played to put the pressure on e5. King e2, and now e5 is not hanging. He has to play something else, and b4 was played. Knight b5, queen d7, rook f1. If, for example, queen b5 in this position, what do you think gonna happen? Right, g6. So we are about to take and play queen h5. And he can't really do anything on that side. So rook f1, he played g6 himself. How to continue? What do you think? No, h4 makes sense, but is too slow. Bishop g6 right now. If he takes, then queen f8, the game is over. So bishop a6 to create some complications. But queen h5. We're threatening with a checkmate. He has to take. Then queen g6. The king can't move. It has to protect the rook on f8. That's why he blocks. But queen takes e6. Trade the rooks and take on a6. The game is over. We are up a piece, and our king is pretty safe. And we are also threatening with maybe just this move to trade the queens. Queen to h6. We can also play e6 in this position to join the bishop into the attack. Anything. The position is absolutely winning. Okay, let's go back. So queen g7, then rook f8, king f8, bishop c5, and what? King g8. How do we win? Looks like we don't. We're still better after this move, but wait a sec. We don't really have extra piece. If we take on a6 now, then I think queen h5 could lead to a perpetual check. It's quite risky. So that's why the best move is queen a6. And then just trade the rooks and take on a6 like it was in the game. Okay. Okay, so in this game, actually, white was already better in the initial position. So here, let's try to sum it up. So first of all, our task is to recognize the black plan. And first thing that we should understand is that bishop h4 doesn't really cause any problems because we don't really need to castle. We may locate the king even there, or even play knight g3. But one of the plans for him is to use the c5 spot for his pieces. He can trade the bishops there. He can also play knight c5. And then knight comes to e4, and at least one of his pieces becomes active. If we trade the bishop for a knight, or maybe knight for a knight, then his other bishop becomes active. It Okay, tell me if everything works. Okay, sorry for the microphone. It looks like I have to test it one more time. Okay, so let me repeat it. So we came to the position where Black struggled with a plan. It's difficult to recommend anything for Black that can improve his position because White made this prophylaxis with the b4 move, and now White has a clear plan to attack on the king side that actually happened White to win the game. While the only thing that Black should do, maybe somehow try to improve the knight or sacrifice the rook. So you see, in this position, when he decided to play a counterplay, he played a really bad move, rook a3, that didn't work. But if not rook a3, then it's just a one-way play. So, and then even after this sacrifice, White was able to succeed because it's difficult to recommend anything to Black in this position. Fine, let me close it. The last game left. This is another game played by Konstantin Sakayev. This time he's played with Sergei Azarov from Belarus. And it's white to move. I want you to find the idea of Black that Black can probably play in this position, and then find a way how to prevent this idea. No, I can hardly say that this is hedgehog. It's not. It's not hedgehog. Maybe white position is similar to hedgehog, but it's not. So what black plan is, and what should we do to succeed? Okay, so Vitaly thinks that black is going to break with the d5 move. Okay. Okay, yes, I agree with you. So d5. First of all, yeah, d5 is a good counterplay, and if I were black, I would play it. However, I want you to notice that this knight is not participating in the game anymore, and his only hope is if black plays d5, then, for example, he can put the pressure on c4, or in case if white takes, then black takes with the bishop maybe, but then c4 with a pawn, try to open the file and activate the knight. So if we want to lock this knight out of the game, we may play e4. This is how we prevent d4 playing from black. But knight d7. And now tell me the idea behind knight d7 move. To play f5? Knight f8, knight e6, and d4. Yes, here Marcel is correct. So that's the goal. Okay, after he moves to d4, can we just stay and ignore the knight standing on d4? Or we should take the knight, either with our bishop or knight? If we take the knight, he gonna take with the c pawn. And what can you say? about the position that is about the change of the position when the knight comes to d4. We take this knight, and the opponent takes with the c pawn. What can you say? Yeah, it also allows knight a to b3. Yeah, we have to take it, and then c captures on d4. So how could the position be changed in our favor or not? And what can you say? Try to picture that position and tell me if it's white or black improved it. So this change is in the black favor. It opens the c5 square for the knight, which can be activated, and so this is kind of an outpost for the knight. Not an outpost, but a strong point for a knight on c5. So bishop 8, knight b7, knight comes to c5. This is quite a good idea. Okay, so do you think we should prevent this plan? If yes, then how? So Mithran thinks bishop h3. Any other suggestions? Knight h4, and how does it work? Knight h4, knight f8, knight f5, knight e6. Bishop c1, g5. How does it work? Okay, actually, bishop h3 is the only idea, and this is what was played in the game. Rook c7, and then we can trade the bishop for a knight. So, of course, I really like the bishop, but the knight was better, and the knight could be activated to d4. That potentially allowed the other knight to join the game. But now let's compare the pieces. So looks like the bishop on b7 isn't really good. As for our bishop, we can activate it and put to c1 and somewhere to the dark squares on this diagonal. While this knight cannot participate in the game anymore, at least we have several tempers. Knight h4, f6. If, for example, he tries to open the position, we can just play 4. So f6, knight f5, bishop e8, knight e3, knight b7. He tries to activate the knight, at least put it to b7. What white should do? Yeah, black could play bishop c8, and I think it was a better option than try to get there, but I think the rook comes to f2, and it's not a big problem for us. Moreover, with the knight standing on e3, it's easy to trap this bishop by playing g4, so it's a kind of a risky strategy. Knight d5 or f4, but what is better, f4 and knight d? Okay, actually, I'm not sure if we need knight d5 because he's hoping to take it as the bishop. f4 right now, you are right. Here, I think he would have to take, but he didn't. If, for example, he takes f4, we can capture either with our rook or our pawn. I would take with the pawn, then try to use the g file to attack the enemy king. So white is definitely better, but this is what I think black should play. However, instead he played queen b8 with the idea to play knight d8 on the next move. How would you continue with white pieces in this position? Okay, so Sheldon, actually both players have a backward pawn. White has the d3, black has the d6. And none of the sides can attack the enemy pawn, actually. So it's not something that we should pay attention to. Okay, while you're thinking how to play in this position, let's go back. So, for example, here Sunit told me that knight f8 could be played, and this sacrifice could make sense. However, I don't think so, because the knight is still bad, and we already have extra exchange. Our task is just to play f4, open the position, and it's just a technical position. No, white has a strong advantage here. I think it wouldn't make sense. So queen b8, knight d8 is coming. How to continue in this position? Okay, right, f5. This is how we restrict the knight. Now it has the only square on f7. a5 to close this flank. No, here to take is not a good idea because he goes to c6, and the pawn dies anyway. So rook f2, knight d8, queen c2, and then king f7. So now both sides are looking for a breakthrough with g4, g5. And they both are preparing for this. What black thinks to do? Black wants to relocate the king to the other side of the board. White wants to locate his pieces ideally, and also to move the king to a safe place. And then you'll see what happens. So g4, king e7, h4, h6, rook f1, knight f7, bishop c1, rook h8, knight d1, knight c3, just a better spot for the knight, rook f3, and now king comes to the other side of the board. What else? King c2, that's not the end. So you see, black has no counterplay. That's why we may spend so many tempers to relocate our pieces. Yeah, the position is quite close, but actually white is winning. Black has just to stay and wait and until white plays g5. So queen e7, bishop e3, queen f8. Oh, bishop e3 maybe was not required in this position. It's just to wait until black plays queen f8. And now g5. What do you think now black can play? H takes g5, but not h5. Oh, actually, yes, of course he has to take. Otherwise, we just put the pawn to g6. The game will be over because of the extra material. And now is the question: what to do? Should black capture on g5? So, for example, f takes g5, bishop captures, knight captures, rook captures. What can you say about this position? Who is winning? Equal chances? Mithran, can you please explain your opinion? White has a better pawn structure. Guys, come on, don't just evaluate the position in general. Tell me the concrete solution of how white wins here. Of course, rook h3 can be played, of course. But how do we succeed in this position? Yeah, so we attack the g pawn. He has to locate one of his rooks on the g file, rook g8. After that, we play rook g6 and f6. And then he can't take. because in such a case, he loses the pawn that is located behind. He loses the rook that is located behind the g7 pawn. So white wins. So this move definitely doesn't work. That's why rook h2 was played. Now, how should white play in this position? If you, for example, ask the computer won't show you this move. But actually, it's because the computer only can calculate the moves. So, for example, the engine that is built into Lichess analyzes in the depth of 21 move. My computer now analyzes it. Okay, now it's the depth of 27 moves, and it shows me that the move that was played in the game is one of the best. White wins with queen. Okay, no, it's not. It was a g6, but after g6 you close the position. How to win then? G takes f6, g takes f6, g takes f6, and how to play after that? Rook g6, rook g7, but they gonna trade major pieces in such a case. Okay, so actually g6 was the best move in this position. If knight h6, then just rook h3 to trade the pieces off. So now this knight has no squares, it moves to d8, and so the only square he can get to is this, and then he can just go to b7 and back. What's our plan in this position? No, not 92, but trade the major pieces off, then come with our knight to h5, attack this pawn, and then take it just for free. This is one of the ideas. The other idea is when we get rid of all major pieces, we play bishop f2, bishop h4, bishop f6, they take and we promote, because he can't really do anything to stop the g pawn. It's far advanced pawn. Now the task is just to find a way how to trade the pieces, to make the major pieces. e2, rook g2, and bishop g1 to play a rook h2. So rook h1, queen goes here, and then rook h2. So here queen takes rook was a better move, but white didn't calculate the line properly and took with the bishop. However, queen h2. So for example, queen c1 if he's looking for a counterplay, but then a4, and there is nothing he can do from that side. So for example, what? Let's say queen f1, king c2. And then we place maybe this move. So this, and then queen goes here, queen g7. Because the queen can't really do anything in this position. And the position is too closed. Maybe also knight d1 to restrict his activity with these pieces. And then queen h7 and so on. Game is winning. If they take, then we just take on f6 and promote. So, but bishop h2 was played. In c1. Here, for example, a4 was a good move. To stop any counterplay. But bishop g3 was played in the game, and with this move, we offered to our opponent a kind of a counterplay, and he played a4. It's actually just a sacrifice for nothing, but our task is just to play some certain moves, not to miss a counter strike. So knight takes a4, bishop c8, queen e1 to offer a trade, queen g5, bishop h4, queen h6, knight comes back, knight b7. And this is what he wants to do. If, for example, in this position, we decide to play queen g3, what's gonna happen? Can you please tell me? What? I mean, what black can play in this position? What do you think? No, not queen c1, but queen d2, and then knight a5 on the next move. So, for example, queen f2 to offer. Oh, actually, I don't know what move to play. Queen. Okay, let's say queen f2, knight a5. He goes there, and queen c3 with queen b3 on the next move. This is how we may lose the position. If we play something like that, it doesn't work, because after queen d3, he is also threatening with queen d1, and we can't secure both squares simultaneously with our queen. So that's why here we just have to play accurately, and king c2. Now queen d2 is not coming, but knight a5 doesn't really make any sense. And just after bishop f6, they resigned. Why? If g takes, g7, queen g8, and how would you play in this position? Well, here you can play both moves, queen g6 or knight d5, but knight d5 is just a more simple way to succeed. You take on f6, the queen has to move, and then you promote. However, queen g6 is another winning move, because here you take and play queen f8. There is nothing he can do. Fine, so let's sum it up. Let's go back to the original position. So here our task was to recognize the enemy plan. It was to play d5 to get this knight activated. We played e4. Now our opponent decided to realize this plan with knight's relocation. And we decided to sacrifice the knight that we decided to sacrifice the bishop to destroy this knight. So rook c7, we took it, and now only white side has a clear plan. Knight h4, knight comes to f5. Now we play f4, and his knight has only one spot on f7. So again, as it was in the previous example, here it's just one-way game. We have the plan, while black has to wait and be looking for some counterplay in case if we make a mistake. So here we just prepared our position for a break with the g5 move. Both sides prepared. Black was waiting because he has no counterplay. We located our pieces ideally and finally played g5. Then we closed the position with the hope to attack the weakness on g7 after we trade major pieces. And it worked, because with so far advanced pawn, we had at least two ideas how to win the game. One of them was to sacrifice the bishop on f6. The other one was to attack the g7 with our knight from h5, of course. And this is what happened. Our task was just not to blunder any counterplay that could happen through the h file. Oh, and then, so after a few moves and bishop f6, the game is over. His pieces, all his pieces, both his minor pieces are bad. That's why we were able to win the game. Okay, fine. Do you have any questions? And also let me know if you liked this webinar. So what do you want me to cover on the next webinar? So, and by the way, looks like we didn't play any simul for a long time. Maybe we can play a simultaneous exhibition. What do you think? So openings was, I think we covered the opening 2 webinars ago. Okay, Sheldon, it's because the second game was easier and the white was already much better. Yeah, I think I'm going to conduct a simul on the next Sunday. Yeah, you play Can Sicilian. Okay, that's good. We have much to discuss. Okay, what else I can say? Guys, so the webinars are free. So if you want your friends to join the webinars, just invite them. This is what I kindly ask you to do. So we need to increase the number of participants to 50. Today, the maximum was 26, if I'm not mistaken. So we need at least 24 people to come. Please try to promote it among your friends, because I'm sure the webinars are helpful. Okay. Okay, so Mithran, what way of the simul do you suggest on Lichess? So I can play I can play simultaneously against everyone, but what time control? Do you think it should be a long game with 30 minutes per side, or what? Just blitz? Because I'm going to suggest 30 minutes per side. 45 plus 45. Okay, Tigran Petrosyan. So the grandmaster from Armenia, not the guy who was a world champion, but another grandmaster with the same name. There are so many players from Armenia with the last name Petrosyan. No, I don't think he was cheating, but I have no ideas how to prove it. He is quite a strong blitz player, and in one game he can beat everyone. But in the match, I think he would lose to Caruana or Wesley So or any top grandmaster. Okay, my Lichess username is anti-Maron. It's on Lichess and GRTSOG on chess.com. Okay, so if we play simultaneous with several players, like with a long time control, I'm going to accept only 10 players, because it's difficult to play with on 20 boards simultaneously. So I think I can accept only 10 or maybe 12. Okay, fine. Yes. So don't forget to send me a friend request on chess.com. Oh, okay. Okay. Sunit, we'll discuss it during our class on Wednesday. Okay. So thank you for coming. I hope you'll come next Sunday to my next webinar, to the simultaneous exhibition. I'm going to publish the announcement. 15 plus 15, maybe. Okay, yeah, thank you. And guys who participate in my Honest Chess League 1, please send me the links to the game that you played. So, okay.